Kendrick Perkins just dropped a bombshell on Stephen A. Smith, claiming he tried to get him fired from ESPN. Fire, you won't believe what really happened behind the scenes.
I say it's the facts. It's the facts. It's the facts.
Kendrick Perkins says Stephen A. Smith secretly tried to get him fired from ESPN. But Perkins claims this is just one example of a bigger pattern in Smith's behavior that could change how people view one of ESPN's biggest voices. Perkins says there was a phone call he will never forget. Not because it was good news, but because it showed him who Smith really is when the cameras are off. On TV, Smith would sit with Perkins on First Take, smiling, joking, and acting like a friend. But according to Perkins, behind the scenes Smith was trying to get him removed from the network. Perkins says Smith almost succeeded. If Perkins had not spoken with a high-ranking ESPN executive in a conversation that was never supposed to happen, the truth might have stayed hidden. And according to Perkins, that moment revealed just how serious the situation really was. This situation was not just about two commentators who did not like each other. According to Kendrick Perkins, it was really about power and control. It shows what can happen when one of the most powerful voices in sports media decides someone else should lose their spot. To understand the story, we had to go back a few years. This did not start in 2026. It began earlier, when Perkins had just finished his NBA career and was trying to build a new life in television. In 2019, Perkins joined ESPN as a basketball analyst. At the beginning, things were going well. He worked hard and showed up every day ready to prove he deserved to be there, just like other former players who moved from the court to TV. But there was a problem. When Perkins first arrived at ESPN, he was not earning the kind of money people expected from someone on national television. Instead, he was on what is called a day rate contract. This meant he earned about $2,500 each time he appeared on TV, and there was a limit on how many days he could work each month. So even though millions of viewers saw Perkins regularly on First Take, it did not mean he had a permanent role. Behind the scenes, things were very different. He was treated more like a temporary guest, called in when needed and sent home when he was not. And this is where the story starts to get more complicated. Because this is also where Stephen A. Smith enters the picture. This is where Stephen A. Smith enters the story in a way many people have never heard before. Around 2020 or early 2021, during the NBA playoffs, Smith was already the biggest star at ESPN. He was the face of a network and one of the most powerful voices in sports media. At that time, he wanted Kendrick Perkins to appear on First Take for an entire week. Not just 1 or 2 days, the whole week. But when Smith asked ESPN executives, they said no. They told him Perkins could not appear for the full week because of the limits in his contract. Perkins was on a day rate deal, which meant there was a strict limit on how many days he could work each month. Even though Smith was the network's biggest star, the executives were not willing to break the rules. But Smith did not accept that answer. According to Perkins, who later talked about this on the Straight Game podcast, Smith picked up the phone and called ESPN executives directly. He pushed them to fix the situation. That moment made many people believe Smith was truly supporting Perkins. Perkins said Smith told him something that night that changed everything. Smith said, "You'll be hearing from the bosses tomorrow." And the next day, that is exactly what happened. ESPN contacted Perkins with an offer that shocked him. They did not just extend his day rate contract. They offered something much bigger. ESPN did not just give Kendrick Perkins a few more TV appearances. Instead, they completely canceled his old contract, even though it still had a year left, and replaced it with a new 3-year deal worth about $700,000 per year. Overnight, Perkins went from earning around $2,500 per appearance with no job security to becoming a full-time analyst at ESPN, making close to $750,000 every year. And the person who helped make that happen was Stephen A. Smith. At first, the story sounded simple. Many people believed Smith had done Perkins a big favor. It looked like a powerful figure at ESPN using his influence to help a colleague. For a long time, Perkins believed that too, but later, Perkins said he realized something different. According to him, Smith's actions may not have been purely about helping a friend. Perkins believes the contract change may have been more like a strategic move. Around 2020, Smith was already negotiating his own huge contract and strengthening his control over First Take. He wanted more influence over the show, especially over who appeared on the panel with him. From Perkins' point of view, Smith may have wanted a debate partner he could regularly face on the show. Perkins, a passionate former NBA player who could create strong reactions, fit that role perfectly. In Perkins' view, locking him into a long-term contract meant Smith had a reliable on-air opponent, someone whose ESPN career had started because of Smith's recommendation. For years, Kendrick Perkins felt like he owed a lot to Stephen A. Smith. After all, Smith was the one who helped him secure that big contract at ESPN. For a long time, things followed the same pattern. Perkins showed up on TV, debated different topics, and played his role on First Take. Meanwhile, Smith remained the central figure of the show. But eventually, something changed. Perkins began to push back more during debates. Instead of simply going along with the conversation, he started challenging Smith's opinions in stronger and more personal ways. According to the story, that shift created tension between them. At that point, the relationship reportedly took a different turn. Instead of helping Perkins, Smith was now seen as someone who wanted him removed. The conflict did not happen overnight. It developed slowly over several years. Their debates on television gradually became more heated, moving from normal disagreements to more personal arguments. Each clash added more strain to their working relationship. One major moment came in February 2023 during a discussion about the NBA MVP race on First Take. On the panel that day were Perkins, Smith, and J.J. Redick. During the discussion, Perkins made a controversial statement that quickly changed the tone of the show and sparked a huge reaction across the basketball world. Kendrick Perkins argued that there might be racial bias in NBA MVP voting. He pointed to statistics and said that since 1980, only 3 MVP winners who were not on a top 10 seeded team were white players: Nikola Jokic twice and Dirk Nowitzki once. Perkins suggested that this pattern might not be a coincidence. It was a bold and very controversial claim. Whether people agreed with it or not, it was the kind of statement that grabs attention and sparks huge debate. Moments like that can make producers nervous but also excited, because they know the discussion could quickly go viral. And it did go viral, but not the way Perkins expected. Sitting next to him on the panel was J.J. Redick, and he strongly disagreed with Perkins' argument. Redick immediately pushed back against the claim. What followed became one of the most talked about moments ever on First Take.
Really is. But what we've just witnessed is the problem with this show, where we create narratives that do not exist in reality.
And Redick.
For him, this was not simply a disagreement about numbers or MVP history. Redick believed that Kendrick Perkins had suggested something very serious about the people who vote for the award, many of whom are journalists and analysts covering the league. Redick felt that Perkins' argument was implying that voters and members of the basketball media were making decisions based on race rather than performance. To him, that accusation was unfair and offensive to the entire voting group. On the set of First Take, with Stephen A. Smith sitting between them, Redick pushed back strongly. The debate quickly became intense, turning from a normal sports discussion into a heated argument that people across the NBA world started talking about.
The implication, what you are implying, that the white voters that vote on NBA are racist, that they favor white people.
The tension on the set was extremely intense. You could almost feel it in the room. J.J. Redick was clearly angry, and his voice showed it. This was not fair. It was frustration. Redick strongly believed that Kendrick Perkins had crossed a line with his comments about MVP voting. Sitting there on First Take, with Stephen A. Smith between them, the discussion quickly turned into a very heated argument. But to his credit, Perkins did not back down. Even with the pressure rising and the moment becoming uncomfortable on live television, he continued to defend his position and tried to stand his ground.
You just said that. Yes, you did. Yes, you did. Yes, you did. That is exactly what you implied, Kendrick Perkins. That is exactly what you implied.
Notice.
You could even see how heated J.J. Redick was in that moment. At one point, he accidentally called Kendrick Perkins Spencer Perkins instead of Kendrick. That kind of mistake usually shows just how intense the moment had become. The debate had clearly moved beyond a normal sports discussion and was starting to feel more personal. Perkins could sense the pressure building around him. But instead of backing down, he reacted the way many competitors do when challenged. He pushed back and defended his argument, All of this unfolded live on First Take, with Stephen A. Smith sitting right in the middle of the heated exchange.
Secondly, hold on.
I did not call. I stated the facts. And you're not about to sit up.
We all know what you imply.
Yeah. After that segment aired, the reaction was massive. Social media exploded, and fans everywhere started debating what had just happened between Kendrick Perkins and JJ Redick. While the argument was happening on First Take, many viewers noticed something interesting. Stephen A. Smith mostly stayed quiet during the heated exchange, letting the two analysts go back and forth while he watched. Later, Smith spoke about the moment publicly when he appeared on a podcast hosted by Bill Simmons. Smith admitted the debate had gone too far and said the situation became uncomfortable. He explained that both analysts shared some responsibility for how intense the discussion became. However, according to Perkins, the real issue was what happened after the cameras stopped recording. Perkins said he expected a private conversation from Smith, something like checking in or showing support after such a heated moment on live television. But Perkins claims that never happened. Instead, Perkins believes that the incident was later used behind the scenes as proof that he could be a problem for the network. From his perspective, Smith may have pointed to the argument with Redick as an example of why Perkins could be considered a risk on live TV, and according to Perkins, that moment was not the only time their on-air disagreements later became issues behind the scenes. Over time, the clashes between them continued, and each new argument added more tension to their working relationship at ESPN. If you enjoyed watching this video, check out our other awesome videos on the channel. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you in the next video.